Alright, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and in today's video we are going to build a standard pistol case. It's the traditional shape, kind of triangle-ish. It unzips completely. I have lined the inside. This is black shearling, sheep wool. We happened upon a really good deal on a ton of different colors of sheep wool and stuff like that. So this one's got black in it. The one we're going to build today will have this like gunsmoke gray color in it. It's a pretty awesome color. Anyway, this is one of our templates that we have out on makersleathersupply.com now. It's got some interesting new things to teach in this video that we haven't done before. Zippers are a new concept for a lot of people, and I understand that. This one has what I like to call, I have no idea what the real name for it is, but I call it a reverse gusset. So basically there's two pieces of leather sewn together right there, and the zipper's on the inside of it. That makes it to where it can go around these corners way easier. And it looks a lot cleaner than just trying to have that zipper be one piece where it would be sewn to the outside and then wrapped around to the inside. The other thing is, we have one of these black nylon. This is a number 5 zipper by the yard that we sell. The interesting part about this build is we're only going to use half the zipper. So we're taking it apart, okay? This part can go into another case later on, but this part's what we're going to use today. And we'll do that by, this is one continuous zipper piece. It goes all the way around and then back to itself. Now, I haven't experimented with the other, like the brass teeth zippers and things like that, to see if they are capable of this same feature. But I knew that these the plastic coil zipper can do it. The plastic coil zippers, I hate to say, oh, they're plastic and blah blah blah, but honestly, they zip up a lot more smoothly and stuff like that. They're a lot easier to set. I just hate that they're plastic. The brass ones look so cool, and kind of vintage. But it is what it is. These are going to look pretty good. I already cut out my main piece out of the template right here because I wanted to do some tooling and stuff and didn't really feel like that needed to be, making this video 3 hours long. So I put the Colt logo on it. Let me get there we go. Put the Colt logo on it. I dyed it with oxblood color dye. It's one of my favorites. It's got a real reddish kind of brown. I left some things natural on it because I was going to do a natural gusset like this one has with that. This is the Wicked Craig russet color, and I was just going to do the same and leave a russet gusset. It would have looked really cool. But after I antiqued it and everything, I decided to go with a black gusset. So my pieces are already cut out. Anyway, I'll give you all the information you need to cut some of these pieces out and everything. I just had to pre-cut these so that I could kind of get ready for this video. So anyway, it's funny because I put the Colt logo on it, and I only own one Colt, so that'll be difficult because now I'll want to put other guns in this one. But it's probably going to end up being a store display anyway. Yeah. So, I'm going to pause the camera, put it on the workplace where I need it, and we'll be right back. Let's build this thing. Alright, so here you are, over my shoulder. Now here is the template for this, this one. And I apologize, but to be able to fit this nicely onto the machine that I use to make these templates, I actually had to reverse the other piece. So I'm sorry, I don't like having to do that. But once you pull the paper off, it's fine. So we're going to go ahead and pull the paper off of the back of it. You should want to do that anyway because, especially when dealing with larger pieces of leather, being able to see through the template will help you avoid any spots or bad marks or anything like that on the leather. Like this one I'm making, it's kind of funny. I went out there and just found an old crappy shoulder that I would never sell to a customer, and that's what I made it out of. We have so many people that get really caught up in, oh, I need extra clean leather, and I get it, sometimes you're making a special project or something that, a mark or something might be in the middle of that wouldn't work out, but a lot of leather workers are able to pretty much deal with the leather they have, and that's kind of what I did in my case. This piece of leather had some markings up here in this area, so that's where this area, so that's where the logo went. I just tooled right over them, did a lot of background work. There you go, not even to be seen. Again, you know, we've got tons of leather here, but why would I use a nice piece that someone else could use for a project when I can just use a piece and make it work? So yeah, we're going to take the paper off this silly thing, and I'll show you how I laid it out and how I cut it out. This template, depending on what leather you're using, the template says right on it you can use anything from 5 to 9 ounce leather to make the main body. But I have found that thicker leather works better with it. Even the one that I showed you that is completed, that was one of my first ones to make, I wanted to make it out of that cool color of leather and that cool texture of leather, but I also wanted the rigid and thickness of a thicker leather. So if you look at the edges of this thing, there's actually a 7-ounce piece of leather glued to the backside. Dadgummit, off the camera. So if you look at the edges of this thing, it's pretty thick. There's a 7-ounce piece of leather glued to the backside of this 4-ounce, and that's how I got the rigidity and everything for making it. So there we are, right there. The template puts together like a puzzle, and it's ready to use. Now, I made this one is 9 to 10 ounce leather. It's pretty substantial, and therefore I used a head knife to cut it out. So I actually just used an ink pen and drew my pattern onto the leather, and then went back with my head knife and cut it out. Let me get this thing centered so I can show you it's the same shape. Got cut on some tool in there. So there should be right there. I did a pretty good job cutting it out, considering I don't use a head knife very often, but I've got me a nice Terry Nipchilled one that I do like to break out once in a while just to make sure I can still use it. So anyway, that's how that gets cut out. The next thing you'll see is there's a little line scribed about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch inside the border of the template. That is your shearling line, okay? When I say shearling line, that means that's the piece that you're going to cut out of shearling. The easiest way I have found to cut out shearling is to draw it onto the back of the shearling and then just use scissors. You're never going to see the back side. It'll be glued down. So yeah, you can do that and use shearling. Now, a little bit about shearling. I don't have a ton of experience, but the thickness of it is called the pile. All right, and if you buy some like saddle grade shearling, you know, companies that are selling saddle shearling are they want a thicker pile, like an inch is what most people really look for, is about an inch or so. And that is a little bit heavy for this project. This stuff is more of a garment style shearling, so it's got maybe a 1/2 inch pile. Some of them probably have a 3/4 inch pile, but either way, they're a little bit thinner, so they're a lot easier to use and to fold the pistol case closed and things like that. I forgot to mention, Gonzales is coming out with a tooling pattern pack for this pistol case, and so we're really excited to see that. That'll be available on his website very soon. Also, the pistol case templates, there's 2 different styles that come in the package. And here is the other one right here. Don Gonzales was here one week, and we built this one together. I did all the construction, he did all the tooling and the designs of the tooling and stuff. And he even showed me how to do this nifty handle right here, which will be on his build video for this particular piece. Works a lot in the same way, except it actually has 2 gussets and both sides of the zipper and everything. But again, that'll all be on the video that he'll put out on his website very soon, or on his YouTube channel. And I'll see if there's a way for me to cross it over on my YouTube channel too. But either way, really cool project. Don's coming out with some tooling patterns for this project too, and like I said, they'll be available on his website. So that's why in this video we're making the triangle traditional shape here, is because he will handle that video. We're gonna mark our shearling. I'm just gonna use a Sharpie marker and just draw this out on my shearling, and then I'm just gonna cut it, you know, a 1/2 inch short all the way around, and that'll be that. Now, when dealing with shearling, you have to be really careful. If you look in the like the armpit areas of the shearling, there's not as much fur, I don't know what to call it, wool on the back side of this. And so you got to be really careful with where you place your pattern. I would rather waste a couple of inches of this this side of shearling than I would to cut this whole thing out and then find out that he's bald right there. So yeah, so you just got to make sure that you've got a good area there. All right. So I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm just going to roughly draw all this out. And I'll show you in a second why it's actually really awesome on this pattern. You don't have to keep this super straight or anything because you have a 3/4 inch room to play that's covered up. All right, so like if we look on the inside of this thing, that right there is the part of the reverse gusset, and it covers up the edge of my shearling to where you don't even see it. The shearling's not even sewn into this case, it's just glued in, and I promise it'll never come back out. So it's really neat design that makes it easy to inlay the shearling in there without screwing things up. So I've got my line drawn. I'm going to take my scissors, and first thing I'll do is just cut out, you know, a giant square here, and then I'll actually cut out what I need out of the shearling. If you are using a shearling with a really heavy pile to it, real thick stuff, then you can use a pair of, you know, animal hair trimmers and cut it down. A lot of folks do. You can give it a haircut with your scissors, but I promise it'll look choppier than you want it to, unless you're way better at it than I am, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not very good at it. All right, so I'm going to take, and again, I'm just going to cut this sucker down a good 1/2 inch or so inside my line, and I'll just eyeball it because, again, I'll never see what I'm doing on the finished product. It'll be under that edge, and so who cares? It's the first time ever that you get to be sloppy and careless with your work, as long as you stay within about a 1/2 inch of where you need to be. All right, so I'm going to pause the video so that you don't have to watch me do this forever. It will take me a few minutes to cut it out, and then when I come back, I'll show you how I do trim the edges of the shearling down a little bit, just to make sure that that zipper lays in there nicely and everything. So here we go. All right, so I got my shearling piece cut out, and what I need to do now is I'm going to lay my my outside tooling piece that has something weird on the back of it upside down there, and I'm going to lay this on it. And what I want to do is I want to mark where my shearling will actually lie on it. Like, I'll center it as best I can here, and I want to mark around it where my shearling goes. And that's because once I have glue on both these pieces, believe me, you can put it down and pick it up 5 million times before you'll have it exactly where you want it. So if we've already pre-marked that, hopefully that'll help us get it on there right the first time. So yeah, it's pretty rare when anything works out the first time, but we're still going to try. And again, this line can be pretty sloppy. It's okay. This also helps me check to make sure I cut enough off, like in the corners especially. If I didn't, then I can always go back and trim a little bit more and get her a little shorter. Which it looks like I may have to do in some areas here. All right, so to me this looks pretty good. Right there I might trim a tiny bit off, and then across this bottom line I'll actually trim a little bit more off. I really want this thing at least a ½ inch away from the edge of the leather. 1/2 to 3/4 is our goal. So I'm gonna do a tiny bit more trimming here, get it how I want it, and then we're gonna give it a little bit of a faded haircut to help our sew line and make sure that we can sew our gusset in there nice and flat. So all right, cut that, and then I also needed to cut this little piece right up here just a tiny bit. All right, now the haircut I've been telling you about. Normally I would do this only over a trash can because it's gonna get this stuff everywhere, but I need to show you, and my trash can's over there. So all I do is I go up to the edge of my shearling, take my, you've got to get some really good shears or some good scissors for this, okay? But take it at about a 45-degree angle and I just trim it. I'm not cutting leather, I'm just cutting hair. This also helps with getting stray hairs and stuff like that off too, that won't end up in your glue line, hopefully. And this also helps, like I just said, the glue line, this helps you not to get glue all over the edges of your shearling and stuff like that. Again, they're buried, you know, under the zipper thing, so that doesn't matter. It's just the idea that it's a mess and it's sticky and it gets everywhere and it's a real pain. So if you can avoid getting glue on the wool, then you're good. In just a second, I've got my vacuum. I'm going to vacuum all this up. You may want to turn your speaker down because I know the microphone on this new camera is pretty good. I need to vacuum it up immediately because every time I move this thing around, that stuff just floats further away on my bench. I mean, it's like having a bunch of feathers on your bench, you know? Which is something I don't like to deal with. Alright. Dyson to the rescue. Okay, shearling's ready. We will set this aside for a little bit, but the next step with the shearling is we're going to go ahead and glue it into place. But we're going to set it aside and we're going to work on that gusset piece a little bit. Okay. So what I have cut out here is 2 3/4 inch strips. Again, mine are black because I decided to go with black for what we're doing. And then on one of them, I skived the living heck out of one side of it, and that's going to help me when we go around the corners and stuff to really stretch down around the corners of putting this thing on the bag. But before we can even think about all that, we need to assemble this thing. So what's going to happen is these two pieces will end up being sewn together back to back, just down along one edge. Yeah. Let me gather my thoughts. I just lost my train of thought big time. Yeah, so, all right, the very first thing I'm going to do is sew my zipper onto one side of this, like that. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to sew them back to back down the other side, all right, so that they form a V. Again, they're both this is both pieces right here. So this is the skived side that's up against the leather, because I need to be able to stretch and mold it around that corner there. And then the non-skived side is over here against the zipper. I wanted to leave it a little bit thicker so that I could use that 1/38 thread and it wouldn't, be paper thin right there. So 2 straps, long enough to go all the way around it, which is at least 36 inches. And then they are 3/4 of an inch wide. And then skive the living heck out of one side of one of the straps. I would say that, I'll show you how I skived it and everything, but I just walked over there to the skiving machine and did it on that, because it's quick, it's easy, and it's very, 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 what's the word? Anyway, consistent. There it is. All right, so I need to get my double-sided tape, and I need to start putting my zipper together. All right, I have way more than 36 inches here, and that's fine. I'm just going to start like that, and I will start in the middle of it when I'm working with it to go around the pattern, and the ends will end up where they are, and I'll trim them off when I'm done. So I'm going to use my double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it on like the back end of this zipper here. Yeah. Again, I'm just using one side of my zipper. You know what? This zipper is very flexible. That's another thing about the plastic zipper. It's super flexible, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'll put it on the back of the leather, which will be more rigid, and it'll make it easier to lay it on the zipper. You can glue the zipper down, but if you've got double-sided tape, it's a heck of a lot cleaner. Real quick, I'm going to go off camera. One thing I'd like to do is dye that edge that's going to be up against the zipper, because this will be the last time that edge is so exposed, and this English bridle, it's not struck through, it's just surface dyed. So I need to just I'll just take a dauber of black dye and run down it once, and that'll be good enough. But I want to hide that edge so it's not just, playing peekaboo right there. So it's not just playing peekaboo right there against the zipper. It would stick out like a sore thumb, and I will end up not ever showing this project to anybody if I don't do it. So I'm just gonna do that right quick, and then we'll be back. Alright, so I did go ahead and dye that one edge right there, but I went ahead and flipped it over, and on the back I dyed a good bit of it too. As you can see, like, there's my black tape stops right there, my black zipper tape, and then there's natural leather beyond that. So I thought I'd better go ahead and just dye that too. That way, this thing, this one's going to be much nicer. The one we're building today is going to be much nicer than the more utility model that I built here that I didn't even bother finishing my edges on yet. So I thought, if there's not really any natural leather showing, then I probably should dye those areas as well. So let's hope I got it all the spots I need to get. So now it's time to place the zipper on there. One of my big things about a zipper is you want to keep, when you tape it together, you want to stay a consistent distance from the edge of the leather to the edge of the zipper teeth. Otherwise, the zipper will end up looking all wavy and everything, and it just won't look as nice and professional as it could. So, there's not really a good trick or secret to that other than having a steady hand and being very careful. I do like to line my zipper up. I'll use my the edge of my table or something like that, and I'll pull it straight against. I'm using the yellow grid lines on my my cutting surface here, and that's what I'll start off with. And then as I just lay the leather down on top of it, I will make sure and keep it straight. I I'm just going to pull a little bit of this tape off at a time because I'm going to have to move it across the cutting surface to make sure I stay straight like that. And then I'll lay it down about 1/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the zipper teeth. And then the good news is you can always pull it back up off the zipper teeth if you need to, like I need to right here. And then after this, I'm going to step over to the Class 26 sewing machine and sew this zipper chain to this piece of leather. And I'm using a camera. That's why we're at this workbench today. We've never done a video at this workbench, but it's right beside the Class 26, so that's why. Okay, almost got it down all the way. Doing this as a one-piece zipper that wraps all the way around does make for a very long zipper, but it's just an easy way to make this, and you don't have to worry about the transition of the zipper at both ends of your project and stuff like that. Pull a little bit back off here. Amazing how your iPod can be kind of quiet on one song and then the next one's a lot louder. Alright, so there it is. The zipper chain is stuck to the leather, and we're going to sew it down. I got a little bit of a bubble here I'm going to fix right quick. All right, so I'm gonna pause the camera and I'll set it up over there by the Class 26, and we're gonna do a couple of things over there. We'll sew that one line, and then we're gonna go ahead and stick these two pieces of leather together and sew them down as well. I don't need to tape it, I don't need to glue it, I'm just gonna hold them together and feed them through the machine. Very rarely do I sew anything that I haven't pre-stuck together, but these are two straight straps. It's not gonna be very difficult to keep them together. So here we go. Alright, so here we are over at the Class 26, and I'll tell you what, I should use this ring light over here all the time because it's my sewing area is nice and bright. I'm not going to be using the drop down edge guide for this part because I've got the zipper here, so I'll just kind of have to eyeball it and keep my presser foot up, or my center foot up on the edge of the leather. My first rule of sewing I try to remember is to check my bobbin, make sure I got plenty of thread on my bobbin. I am using this natural thread. A black thread would really go nicely here too, but one, I'm lazy and don't want to change it out, and two, I just love this natural thread. I think it'll kind of add to the classic look of it when it's done. I want this one to look real classic and old school, and so far with all the colors we put into it, that's kind of where we're at. So anyway, I'm just going to start stitching, make sure my stitch length is good, make sure my tension's good, get my head nice and in your way, I'm sure. Alright, so it's good to go. So I'm going to ramp this sucker up and I'm going to sew it down pretty quickly. I don't know, it's kind of hard with this giant light in my left eye here. I'm just using my fingers to help it guide. If I stay really, really still, then technically this thing, or theoretically, this thing should just run straight through. We'll see. Getting kind of close there. Alright, so there it is. Nice pretty stitch. I did get a little bit close in one small area, but it'll be alright. It's not so bad that you can even notice if I don't point it out. So I'm not going to point it out. I didn't lock the stitches down on either end of it, just because I don't need to. That's all going to be put together with some other stuff later. But now I'm going to take and I'm going to butt up this piece with it. And what I'm going to be sewing down is the thick side. Remember, I skived one side of this strap, and I'm going to be sewing down the thick side to the other side of this. Okay? I need to start over here. And I will use my edge guide on this because I can. And that'll help my feed and help the machine to run nice and straight. Okay? And again, I'm not going to bother with a back stitch and stuff because I just don't need it. I am going to make a little bit longer of a stitch length because this one's going to be hidden and I don't need it to be such a nice pretty short stitch. I've got my starting tail wrapped around the hook here. Dang it. There we go. Alright, now we can sew this sucker up. I am going kind of slow just because again, I didn't glue this together or anything like that. I just am holding these two pieces and I'm trying to keep them nice and straight as I go. And I don't have to look to know that what just walked through the door is the most gorgeous woman ever made. Hi, honey. By the way, the pieces I'm sewing together, they're about 5 ounces each. 4 to 5 is the thickness. I know I told the length and the width. I don't believe we talked about the thickness. Alright, so that's done and sewn now. Clip it off the machine. There's what the back side looks like, and then when you open it up, it looks just like the that other gusset on that other one that I showed you. And there it should be. Alright, so we're going to go back over to the other table, and we're going to do a whole lot of glue up, and then we're going to do the final sewing. This is actually a pretty quick project, minus of course any tooling and stuff that gets done to it. So yeah, we'll be right back. Alright folks, now it's time to get to gluing. Alright, everybody's favorite part. Got me a jar of contact cement, and first thing I'm going to do is glue this and the shearling together, and then I will glue the edge of the zipper strap to the main body. To do this, I should have grabbed a piece of paper before I started. Let me grab some paper so I don't get glue all over everything. Alright, got my glue barrier down. Now on this piece, I'm going to go ahead and put glue all the way out to the edges, because the next thing I'm going to do after putting the shearling on here is to go ahead and put my my zipper piece on. So as opposed to coming back and gluing it again, why not just put glue all over the whole thing? So we're going to do that. I should have pre-opened my glue jar, just make sure the lid's not glued shut today. I'm just going to pour a big old glob in the middle here and start spreading. Sure, I got way too much, but that's okay. I want to make sure that every square inch of this thing has glue on it, because I want that shearling to adhere really nicely, and I want it to stay there forever, and this is the right glue for that. For those of you that are using just the white Tanner's Bond glue from Tandy, that's not a bad product at all for some applications, but if you're doing a big area like this and you're not going to sew it later, you really want to look into using a contact cement of some sort. Keep in mind, contact cement and rubber cement are two totally different animals. Rubber cement is meant to be temporary, and contact cement is meant to be permanent. So different things. And I just say that because I've had people that tell me they're using rubber cement because, well, had the word cement in it, had to be kind of a similar product. And sure, similar but different. Alright, now there's glue all over every little square inch, square centimeter, square whatever of this thing. So I'm going to set it over here, and now I'm going to glue up the back of my shearling. I am going to be a little bit more careful because, again, I don't want to get my glue all over my my shearling, like the actual wool part of it. I'm going to refold my paper since I was sloppy with the other, and put some weights down so that the paper doesn't curl up on me. Alright, so now we're going to glue this bad boy. I'll kind of do the same thing, I'll just be a little more careful when I get to the edges of it. Ooh, that's a big old glob. That's definitely going to glue my jar shut. Alright. So I'm going to get it kind of close to the edge, just slopping it around, and then I'll come back and finally get it to the edge much more carefully. Chunk of dried up glue from where I just rubbed it off the side of the glue jar there. There we go. And again, this is going to be real fun once we go to place it on the other to make sure it's on there good and straight, and it's going to be up against our line like we want it, but got to be done. Push my jar or my brush down a little further. The jar's getting empty. Okay. Spin this bad boy around so we can get to the other edges. And it gets to where it's difficult because you don't have anywhere to hold it that's not covered in glue. And you really don't want to stick your thumb to it, but you're going to have to. But that's okay. It's a sloppy job, but it has great results. So there we go. I'm going to give this a few minutes to set up as far as, the glue drying a little bit. And when we come back, we'll stick it together.
There's a lot of this.
All right, while I wait on, while I wait on that to dry, or that glue to set up, I'm actually going to go ahead and just put some glue on the back of this thing too. And the place I'm putting it on is on this skived edge that's going to go against the outside edge of the project there. All right. So we'll go ahead and glue that up. That way we don't have to have another 5-minute waiting period after putting the shearling on. And then, yeah, we're getting close. Again, this is not a difficult build and it's not a long build. This thing can be made fairly quickly. Makes it a great project for, if you're doing a fair, having a booth somewhere, something like that. I'm just gluing the outside 1/4 inch or so of this piece. I'm making sure I get it all the way to the edge though, so that I'll have a nice pretty edge to, I'm going to use black edge ink on this project. And yeah. Alright, so that's enough of that. You don't need to watch me glue up the other like 20 inches of this thing. So I'm going to go back to pausing it. When I come back, we'll put the shearling in. Alright, so here we go. We've got our glue set up, and I haven't really figured out a perfect way yet to do this part. But the best I can figure is to fold it in half, try to lay it on your lines. I've already missed. And then hopefully when you unfold it, it'll just fall into place on the other side too. Hopefully. Nope, too far over. And make sure not to press it down until you know it's where you need it. Because once you press it down, you're done. This stuff, this shearling has a very thin back to it, and it stretches terribly when you go to pull the glue back apart. So I'm going to let you watch me struggle doing it so that you won't feel bad when you possibly struggle doing it. Then again, you might come up with an awesome idea on how to do this. If you do, please leave it in the comments because I would love to know about it. And make sure too that it doesn't fold over on itself, because of course then it's glued down to itself. Alright, I had placement right, I had angle wrong. Okay, I think we are pretty good here. Alright, I've got one area here where it's a little bit close to the corner, so I'll pull up a corner of it and trim that down just a little bit. because again, I don't want this under my my sewing for my reverse gusset that I'm going to do. So anywhere it's a little bit too close, I'm just going to trim a tiny bit off, making sure I don't trim off so much that it's not going to be in the gusset. All right, I've got to take that phone call, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the glue was already on here. The glue's already on here. We're ready to stick them together. I marked the center of the zipper piece by just folding it in half and marking where the center is. Then I marked the center of the back side of my main body here. Okay, and yeah, I'm just gonna stick them together now. So all I got to do is I'm going to kind of separate a little bit of that, and that'll make it easier to go around the corners and stuff like that. And when we go to stick this stuff down, here's that middle piece again. We'll go to stick this stuff down just like this, and we just stick it right along the edge and work our way around. We'll do one side, then we'll do the other side. See, and then that's nice and black on the inside and everything there, like I'd hoped that it would be. Just gonna work my way around, sticking it down. I'm just kind of getting down here and looking underneath it to make sure that I'm right on that edge. And then as I go around the corner, you got to finagle it a little bit, you got to stretch it a little bit, but it works very well to just stick and move. Alright, finagled the corner there. I'll do a little bit more work on that corner when I come back to it in a minute. But for now, I'm just going to rough all this out around here. Pinch her down. When I get back to the centerpiece, there's a couple of different ways to do the middle here. The easiest way is like what I did here, where I'll just end that zipper and I'll cap it with a little scrap of my my black English bridle, and that's going to be the easiest way. If you want to really work hard at it, you can not glue down the centerpiece and you can stuff them up under there and you know, and all that. But it really it's going to be difficult. And this is the way I'm going to do this one, just to show the easier way, because it's you don't have to do near as much pre-planning and stuff like that. All right, we're almost to the front corner, which is going to be the most difficult because it's a much sharper corner than that back one there. So watch me struggle, and hopefully you'll see something that you'll be like, oh, I won't have to struggle like he did. You can make this out of thinner leather, like 2 to 3 ounce, you know, or something like that. Then you wouldn't even need to skive it, really. And that'll easily help go around these corners. But sometimes I don't like doing it the easy way, so here we go, thicker gusset. Alright, and then there's a little bit of a fold to this, and I'm going to fold it up as I go around this, but then later I'm going to turn it down after I sew it. But I need to fold it up just to get this angle right and get the room to sew it here. This would not be a difficult project to hand sew. It would take some time, of course, but it wouldn't be all that difficult. So, for those that don't have a sewing machine and want to make this project, not a problem. So there we go. We are now glued to this one side. Again, I'm going to twist this zipper up in this corner, or this gusset, and that'll help my my sew line down there. Then I'll push it back down after I sew it. Grr. Tough stuff. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to go back to my original starting point, and I'll do the exact same thing going around the other way. Alright, so I'm not going to make this video 6 hours long by showing you both sides, but I really am going to do the exact same thing, and when I'm done, you know, these two will be lined up on the inside here, and then we'll go to the sewing machine. So, give me a minute. Alright folks, what was a instantaneous pause for you was actually a 24-hour delay for me. After I paused the video to finish gluing this thing down, had plenty of visitors in the shop yesterday and everything, so unfortunately I was not able to finish this video yesterday. So here it is, it's now Sunday, and we're getting this sucker finished now. So everything is glued down all the way around. The ends of it I've just kind of left swinging here. After I sew it together, I will do something with these. But the very next step is we're going to set the camera back up over by the Class 26, and we're going to carefully sew this thing together. Here we go. Alright, so here we are at the 26, the sewing machine, and we're going to come up with a plan on how to sew this thing best. It's most difficult right up here around these two corners, just because it's wanting, due to the stretch and the curve, it's wanting to pull it away from the edge, and that can get caught up against your needle plate. If you're hand sewing, that's not necessarily as much of an issue. But we're going to try to machine sew this bad boy. So I'm going to see if I can kind of maneuver the leather underneath a little bit just to fold it out some, see if that'll help. But I think I can get enough of a bite on this to go all the way around it. So that being said, I'm going to start out, I believe, right in here. You always come up with kind of a sewing plan before you start sewing, of, you know, your direction and everything. You want to get as much of it done at once as you can. Now, all that being said, I am going to hand sew the very last little bit of inside this notch here, but I'm going to try to get the rest of this done on this machine. We'll see how well it works, how well I did going around my corners and stuff when I did my glue up. So anyway, when you're sewing on a sewing machine, if you're a beginner with a sewing machine, one of the biggest rules that you need to follow is that presser foot needs to be on the inside of the project. Okay, it needs to be able to have a lot of leather to ride on. If it's out here on the very, very edge of your leather, then what's going to happen is every 10 stitches or so, your leather's going to fall off of it, and your stitch line's going to be going straight as an arrow, and then bam, off to the left. I see a lot of people's work that has that trait to it, but you know, you try to help them, and they already know more than I do, so that's fine. Keep sewing. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go slow. I'm going to be very, very careful with this because I don't want to do it more than once. And I'm going to push it very hard up against the cylinder arm here because I want to try to make sure that I get that bottom layer up under there. Again, on the straight areas we'll do a lot better, but this part right here, with that fold under there, it's just real difficult, so we got to be very, very careful. I'm sure my thumbs are in your way, and I'm sorry about that. But all right, now I can fold this sucker under and just go to town on it. And I'm reaching under here with my index finger and pulling that zipper down and away so that it'll clear the sewing machine as it goes up there. I definitely don't want it to work its way up under the needle and get sewn up. That back corner wasn't near as difficult to go around because it's not as sharp of a corner, so it wasn't too bad. Running off of it here. I let go at the wrong time and that zipper sure pushed it out of the way. So let's get back on. Alright, hopefully I didn't run off underneath over there, but I won't know until we're finished. Alright, I said I was going to hand sew that last little bit, but I think there's enough room to just kind of fold that zipper under and keep on going around it here. Let's hope I don't eat those words. I've been known to do that. Yeah, it's a pretty ugly stitch right there. I probably should have gone with plan A and just gone ahead and hand sewn that. But that's what happens when you get in a hurry. Alright, looks good. Alright, I'll meet you back over here at the work table. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is put our zipper on here. Remembering that the zipper is on the bottom side from what we're working with here, because it'll be the outside when the zipper reaches the outside of the case over there. So I'm going to put it on this one side here. I think. This one has the ribbon on the back of it. I might have got some glue on it. Wonder if that piece got damaged maybe. Let me, I'm gonna just clip the very corner of that off and start with fresh teeth. Maybe those teeth got damaged or something because it doesn't want to go on there. Zippers can be very tedious, and I know they're intimidating for most. They were very intimidating for me for a long time, but they've become kind of fun now that I know how to do them. Alright, so got it on that one very easily there. I'm gonna go ahead and clip the corner of this one just to avoid that possible conflict again. You need to hold these things out here as straight as you possibly can because you want them to zip up evenly. So as you work the little zipper train down one side, you want it to link up with the other side in just the right spot so that once you zip it, it will won't have a bubble in it where, you know, one zipper's shorter than the other or whatever. So once we work it on here, we'll zip it completely up and test our positioning. Again, once we get it on there. Come on, buddy, you can do it. I believe in you. Luckily there's plenty of zipper left here, so I'm just going to clip it down and maybe it'll like a different area on the zipper. Who knows? These things can be temperamental. There we go. I think we got her. Alright. That doesn't look very even. It's really going off to the left there. Or sorry, to my right. So I'm going to readjust and pull it back down again and see where that goes. Oh, come on now. It knows the video's on. It wants to make sure that we use up as much time as we can here. Alright, this thing's getting real frayed up here, so again, I'm going to chop it off. Try again. I've got about 2 more inches I can do that with before I got to figure out what in the world is going on. There we go. Easy as pie, right? Just goes right on sometimes. Almost like it's accidental. Alright, so fold this sucker closed. There she goes. Only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the edges here, and I'm going to apply black edge ink to get them nice and black and shiny to match the rest of the gusset and everything. And that's it. There it is. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. So while I get ahead of myself here, I need to fix the ends of these ugly zippers in here, and I can't believe I was about to leave it without doing that. Guess I got too excited about that zipper going together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this sucker off right about here, making sure it's well within the inside of the case. My hand's in the way. Well within the inside of the case here. And I'll just chop it off with a pair of scissors. I'm going to take some of my leather that matches my my gusset, which is the black English bridle we've been using here. And I'm just going to cut me off a little rectangle that'll squeeze down over that and sew down. I do have a ruler. Do I have something to cut? There we go. There's a little scrap right there that'll work just fine. So I'm going to cut me a piece about 1 inch wide. Square off an end here, and then we'll measure that and square off the other end. And off camera, I apologize for that. So it's 1 inch wide, and it's going to end up being about 2 inches in length. There it is. So I'm going to take this, fold it in half, and just clamp it on the end of this and sew it together. That's it. No big secret to it. It'll be just like that. And that'll hide all the ugly end of the zipper and the fraying and stuff like that. And it'll give that a nice stop, and that'll fold up nicely inside the case. No trick to this. I'm just going to run it through that sewing machine real quick, so I'm not going to move the camera. Alright folks, so there it is. Again, all I'm going to do still is the edge work on these edges and everything, but that's it. The construction is 100% complete on it. On my sample one here, I did put an extra piece of leather and a little D-ring. I don't really know why. I mean, I just kind of felt like it needed it, but I can't think of a single reason I'll ever use it. I mean, it's not like I'm going to hang it up or anything like that. But anyway, it is an option. Very simple to install. It was the very last thing I did to the project. I just put a rivet through. I kind of clamped a piece of leather on there and put a rivet through all the pieces with the D-ring on it. And that was that. So not going to do that on this one because, again, I just don't really see a purpose for it other than I thought it might need it. But just to show what size we're looking at here, I did reach over there into a drawer and grab that's a 357 with, I think, a 6-inch barrel. 5.5 inch barrel. So fits in there like it was meant to be, but that's about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you've got a giant Ruger Blackhawk or something, it's definitely going to be bigger. Anyway, I feel bad. That is a Ruger, and this is a Colt case, but my Colt's at the house. So, yeah. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and thank you so much for watching and supporting what we do. And our templates are always available on our website, but also there's a couple other folks carrying them out there too now. Thanks. Have a great day.